Hello everyone. Today I will present the rhetoric of child play, one of the rhetorics that Brian Smith, the author of Ambiguity of Play, has discussed in his book. So let's start. In the context of exploring the rhetoric of child play, Brian was concerned to emphasize the play role in the child developmental process and present theories and studies during the last century which were concerned to explore and understand the play impact on the child. And now we'll start our journey with explaining the theory of recapitulation. According to this theory, a child's play proceeds through a series of increasingly complex and social stages as the child proceeds to maturity, and these stages are believed to parallel the evolution of the species. And despite this theory did not endure, yet the recapitulation theory left a major unlinear mark on play psychology in the idea that how child develops through the stages of play should be central to our knowledge of play. And now we will move to explore play as a cognitive development, as most play studies in the first half of the last century have been of normative kind, which assign development as a set of stages through which children must proceed both in cognition and in play. Despite its purported evolutionary origins, part of the attraction of this kind of research is the promise of predictable regularities of reliable kind. It's important to mention that developmental psychology has been focused on mapping the increasing complexity of the human. And what the play psychologists so often do is convert the maps of development toward maturity into recommendations for how to accelerate children's progress across those maps. Furthermore, the relationship between play and development has come to be so taken for granted, as it is considered the progress rhetoric of play is very much also a rhetoric of developmental stages. And with taking a look at the researches that studied the game's effect on developing the cognition, there were some experimental researches that depended on Super Mario 64 game to test the video game's impact in the development of the children's cognitive skills. I selected two of these researches, the ones that have been accomplished by the researchers in University Oberta de Catalonia, Barcelona, Spain, which was entitled Cognitive Enhancement via Neuromodulation and Video Games. And the other one is playing Super Mario and uses structural brain plasticity by Dr. Quinn. Both of these experimental researches recorded an interesting observations and results, which I will present next. Regarding the first research, volunteers who have prior experience of playing video games showed better processing and focus response, and they performed better on relevant stimuli during tasks. Also, players who played regularly as children were better in processing 3D objects. Besides that, participants with early video games experience showed an improvement in their working memory performance. As for Dr. Kane's study, it showed the potential of Super Mario 64 to prompt structural changes in parts of the brain, which are associated with executive functions and spatial memory by stimulating neurogenesis and the connectivity in the brain regions responsible for spatial orientation, memory formation, and strategic planning. And now we are moving to discuss children's play as learning. After the Second World War, developmental science shifted to understanding the role of play in child development. More studies during the period from 1940 to 1960 showed that the more the parents play with their children, especially the mother, the more active the child, as the mother who responds to play smiles and coos. Then during the period from 1960 to 1990, more studies were concerned about children's play understanding. Studies showed the relationship between children's play with sound and language development. Others showed that children's play with materials enhanced a child's ability to solve problems and creativity development. Also, other studies showed that when parents and teachers are more involved in playing with children, there is a development in children's lingual skills and literacy. It was noticed that the children who are involved in extracurricular events and sports are more intelligent and successful in life. Furthermore, research has shown that the children who are neglected by their peers tend to do badly in their school development and social life. Now, we'll highlight some skeptical studies. As in recent years, many researchers has critiqued the effect of play in a children's development. Part of them was discussing the idea that not only the play is the reason for the child's development, as maybe it's because of the relationship between the teacher and the child which forms after playing. Also, skepticism has risen from experiments which have been done on group of children with less playing skills and less teacher simulation, and other groups of children with playing experience, and it's found that no difference between the two groups. Taking into consideration as a note, it was found that those experiments have only a few minutes of play, which is hardly sufficient to give a fair judgment. But Smith sums up his own point of view about play and child development by admitting that play ethos from 1930s till now has an influential effect in the educational circles. But he argues that much research has gone too far in assuming many functions for play. And now we'll explain the interplay between play rhetoric and the play activity. Since children are highly motivated to play, those who work with children have used play to facilitate working with them. In case of therapists, they used play to communicate with children in order to help them to get recovered. For teachers, play helps them to motivate children to come to school. And as an example of play involvement in education, geography simulation game, which gives the children motivation and enjoyment to go further in educational process. And another link between play and development is that play skills help children to become more social and enduring friendships. It also helps the children to get involved easier when shifting to new communities. Although being on the playground has its positive effect on the child, it also has its negative ones, as a playground may be a source of bullying and conflicts. In order to recognize the play developmental form, a play scale of development has been sketched out, ranging from the simplest to the most complex level as following. The inability to play, as in mental illness cases of people with a stressful life. Play as pathology, as in cases of gambling, regressive and sadistic play forms. Play as a form of security, which is typical for anxiety and persons with aggressive expressive behavior, who surrounding themselves with repetitive forms of play. Play as stereotypic, which ranges from house play and crossword puzzles to team sports, and it is for persons with average to complex play capacity. Playful forms of play. These are the games which need a great flexibility, capacity for playing, and players' potential to transfer. The rhetoric of play as progress is perfect to this kind of players, as they are supposed to have enough flexibility to transfer. And regarding to individual differences in play, individuals show great variation, as similar as any other psychological variables. Also, it was noticed that there is a huge difference between different cultures in kind of amount of play, as some cultures encourage it while others don't. If play is an adaptation activity, it can be used to different individuals in different ways. And now It is important to emphasize that play theory is not only about the children, but it also about the old. So play theory has to be able to attract both the young one and the old to do more with keeping up one's spirit to be more adventurous and less boredom. We came to the end. I hope you enjoyed and thank you for listening.